You're listening to a download from the outdoorstation.co.uk. Number 540.
Hello and welcome back to another podcast here on the Outdoor Station. My last podcast contained sad news regarding the passing of my friend and regular podcast contributor, Andy Howell. As many people know, he and I met in 2006 in Scotland on his first TGO Challenge crossing. A listener in Australia, Amory, contacted me this week with a lovely note asking to hear that 2006 Crossings series, which I thought was already in the podcast listing on the Outdoor Station. However, I realised in 2006 when I listened to it that it was badged under the backpackinglight.co.uk heading, which was probably the reason it didn't make it into the original Outdoors Station listing. Anyway, I thought, no matter. It's a fun series which contains my first meeting not only with Andy but with Shirley Worrell, Lorraine McCall and Steve Perry, to name but a few, plus several other interviews I did during the crossing. Sadly, Steve and Andy and a few other voices are not the only people that are no longer with us. 2006 seems like a long time ago now, but the emotions and the whole challenge experience remain the same no matter the year you undertake it. So let's look back in time and enjoy.
Hey, you're listening to One Man's podcast across Scotland.
Brace yourself!
Backpackinglight.co.uk.
The UK's first outdoor podcasting show.
Minimum weight.
Maximum fun.
Hello and welcome to this special Backpacking Light podcast 10-part series recorded as part of the 2006 TGO Challenge, sponsored by the Great Outdoors magazine and Berghaus. For those of you who don't know, the TGO Challenge is an organised walk which takes place in May of each year from the west coast to the east coast of Scotland, which is approximately 200 miles. Set up in 1980, the framework and principle is totally unique. It isn't a race or a competition of any kind. The object is to foster good fellowship among walkers within the framework of a challenging expedition. The start consists of 12 sign-out locations on the west coast, from Torridon in the north down to Ardrishaig in the south, and each challenger, solo or group, makes their way via a high route, low route or mixture of the two across Scotland to finish anywhere between Arbroath and Fraserburgh on the east coast. There's a set 2-week window to do this in, and each participant submits their route for inspection prior to departure for safety and advice reasons. The places, however, are limited to 300, and details about the event, if you're interested, and entry forms and past diaries can be found in the October issue of TGO magazine. Each participant makes the challenge as easy or as hard as they wish. The extremes can be a solitary, remote route, sometimes not seeing another person for days on end, or a route which takes in the many social events, perhaps using established accommodation all the way. Most people do a mixture of the two in different forms. This year, I undertook the crossing with my wife Rose, from Lochailort to Dunatar Castle. As we went, I recorded this audio diary to try and capture the atmosphere and to share our experience and those of the many people we met en route. The 2006 TGO Challenge Part 1. Sadly, as you'll hear, I started this challenge with a heavy dose of flu, which lasted most of the trip, so I must apologise in advance for my voice at times. In this episode, it takes us from the train arriving at Lochailort to Saturday AM at Corryhully-Bothy, a distance of 16.8 kilometres, a climb of 847 metres and a descent of 819. We try and describe our surroundings, the gear that we're carrying, the first magic brew of the trip, and that superb peace which can only be found in the wild places of Scotland.
There can be few more beautiful train journeys in the world than the one which goes from Glasgow to Mallaig, where I'm currently staring out at a beautiful sunny vista of lochs and mountains, ready to start this year's TGO challenge. The atmosphere on the train is electric. The carriages are about to split, and the last two carriages contain some 60 or 70 challengers, all of whom will be starting from different points, from Mallaig back down to Oban. Everybody's sharing information, everybody's talking excitedly about what's to come, and everybody's sharing their thoughts on the weather reports we've all heard, which I have to say do differ from 3 days of snow, wind and rain to 3 days of glorious sunshine for the first few days of the trip. Of course, the west coast of Scotland is a microclimate, I have to say, in all the different areas. So you can be as little as 20 miles apart, and on the day one or day two, people can be experiencing snow and rain and glorious sunshine within minutes of each other. But I have to say, today is a wonderful day. The sky is almost clear of clouds, probably about 20% cloud cover. The sun is very encouraging. Interestingly, all the challengers I've seen have obviously started from home wearing several layers of equipment and have now peeled off down to t-shirts, and we're all trying to cool off as best we can as we wait to arrive at our stations, our chosen stations. This is the first of a series of podcasts, hopefully, that will reflect the TGO challenge and capture some of the atmospheres and the characters and the places that we pass through. And I hope to be chatting to a whole variety of people on the way. Some challengers, some locals, and other general hikers. I'm sure we'll see of every nationality. I'm really looking forward to it. Rose is a bit apprehensive. It's the first one she's done. And there are several other first-timers here that are also sharing the same apprehension. But it's like all these things. You've packed your bag now, you're on the way, there's no turning back. The thing to do now is get on with it and enjoy every moment. So here we are, Friday morning, the 12th of May 2006, and the start of this year's TGO challenge. It's 7 o'clock. I'm standing just outside the bed and breakfast, just down the road from the Lochailort Inn. The weather is dull, really, I suppose. Low cloud. You can probably hear a bit of a breeze that's blowing past here. Solitary car comes down the road. The birds have been singing. The cuckoo's giving us his early morning tune. I'd say cloud is at about 200-300 metres. It's grey all over, bit of drizzle, nothing spectacular. Probably an ideal day to start going, really, because you'll soon be generating some heat, and it's much better to do that in a cooler day than a hot day. So we're just about to head down to Lochailort Inn and see the other sort of dozen or so people that are leaving from there, I suppose. I do apologise for the sound of my voice for yesterday and probably the next couple of days. Bit of flu, which I'm trying to shake off. Hopefully as we get into it, it'll disappear and things will improve. So we're going to head off and get going. As there's not much wind, I thought I'd record the first walking piece. So, about half an hour now into the climb off the road from Lochailort up towards the path that goes over the top and down to Loch Buored. It's fairly mild, cloudy, good thick grey clouds, but not threatening any rain yet. So I suppose most people
will be wondering first of all what we're actually carrying. Rose and I decided to carry a week's worth of food, so we're doing one drop, which is at Kingusi, and so according to the airport our bags collectively weighed 36 kilograms, and I know that 7.5k of that is actually food. Sorry, not 36, 26 kilograms. 7.5k was food. So in essence our base weights are less than 10k each, which is pretty well what you'd want and hope for on a trip like this, as sadly you have to plan for the worst and hope for the best, as everybody discovered yesterday when it was glorious sunshine and we were all stripping off on the train. So for the gear freaks, let's get that out of the way first. I got some Mendel fabric boots with Gore-Tex lining, 3 pairs of sports wool hiking socks, a pair of carbon fibre walking poles, which are a must on something like this, Terra pants, Terra shorts. In fact, I'm Mr. Montaigne man, really. Terra pants, Terra shorts, pair of Ron Hill's classics, which is my sort of nighttime, if I'm cold, or dry trousers if I need them. Tops, I've got Montaigne again, Bionic Tee, which is this merino wool one, so I'm giving this one a blast. And then for a thicker layer, long sleeve, I've got the Sub-Zero Factor 1 for, again, night times or if it's particularly cold. And I've got the Montaigne Featherlight shirt, Superfly jacket, some Berghaus Packlight trousers, and sort of assorted hats, gloves, and some Packlight overmitts, Trekmate overmitts, which are so small and light you lose them in the bag. What else? Gaiters. I'm not wearing any gaiters just yet, because I know from the first few days when you set off and get used to it, the amount of heat your body gives off, you really want to keep your feet as cool as possible, so I'm not sticking them on until I really have to. And so far the path is sort of a stream bed, come bit of bracken, a bit of slush, a bit of mud, but nothing that's going to swallow up boots and gets lots of crud in there. Apart from this flu, feeling pretty good, so I can't work out whether I feel hot and clammy because I'm lugging this weight, or it's the germs. So if Glenn Van Pesk is listening, sorry mate, I'm not doing it with one little plastic bag that does everything. Try as I might, I can't quite get the base weight down below 9.5k for these sort of conditions. And to be fair, the humidity is quite high, so you've always got that problem. Oh yeah, tent. We've got a Solar 2, Terra Nova Solar 2, which we're sharing, obviously. I chucked away those stupid carbon pegs and replaced them with some titanium ones. Carbon pegs are just deadly, they just burst a hole in anything. And also, I'm reluctant to believe they hold on to the guys very well. A couple of Alpkit Pipe Dream 600s, which I know are a kilo each, and we could go lighter, but after last year and -5, I decided that a little bit of comfort's a good thing, and to be fair, there's such bloody good value for money. And they've got neck baffles, which to me is the most important part about keeping warm at night. Then I've got the new Montaigne Kinetic shirt, which is supposed to be for sort of sports work, but it's like a power stretch Polartec, but with some reflective bits on it and some webbing down the underarms and the sides, and it's extremely tailored and fits very well. And I've quite taken a fancy to it actually, so that's given a good blast this time. And then my ultimate insulation layer is my beautiful Clatermunson Live smock, which crunches down into the size of a tin of beans and weighs nothing. Rose has got the Go Light Down jacket in cola because it's a lovely colour, and that too crunches down into next to nothing. What else? We're sleeping on Thermarest Pro Light 3 shorts. Basically, although the Torsolite pad is adequate for the job, we just wanted a little bit of comfort and something we could clip together to give us a decent sized mattress between us, as we might have a romantic moment or two. So that's that. We've got a couple of tea light mugs and a couple of MSR titanium mugs. So we're cooking in the tea lights, and as Rose is with me this time, we've dehydrated a lot of puddings. So one's doing pud, the other's doing the main course, and of course the mug is doing drinkies. And as such, one of us has got a peak ignition, the other one's got the Vargo tea light stove, jet tea stove they call it, and a couple of gas cylinders which we'll replace in Kingussie. A couple of sporks, sort of the usual stuff, wash kit, micro towels. Anything else, Rose? First aid kit, yeah. We've got one decent one and extra ones, and of course now I've got a load of flipping strepsils and Lemsips as well. Toilet trowel. Oh yeah, the agonise this time whether to take a bivvy bag, a bothy bag, or tinfoil emergency blanket. So what we did, bivvy bags are great I think if you're using them for camping, and if you have to take an emergency bag for some reason. But from last year's experience, when the weather had really turned nasty, all he wanted to do was get out of the cold wind and ice. And particularly when it's okay doing river crossings when it's glorious sunshine, but when it's sleet, it's a whole different psychological battle. So we decided on the bothy bag, and I cut off all the extra tabs because we're using the bothy bag for three things. Partly as a emergency shelter, should we need to do that, and I say the weather's those sort of conditions. Partly to sit on and lie on in the sunshine when we decide to have a brew stop. Partly as a footprint underneath the tent, should we need to. That's quite useful. And then it occurred to us today that should we have any situations where the river's a bit dodgy, we might put both rucksacks inside the bothy bag, tie it up, and then drag it across the river if we have to swim for it. It's a bit on the deep side, basically anything above waist deep, because you've got your rucksack on, it's going to get wet anyway. And we were expecting a lot more rain. Well, it's be a lot wetter up here, certainly from the weather reports and the weather we've been watching just lately. And it's actually, at the moment, touch wood, very dry. We're almost at the top of the climb now, and looking back I can see a couple of challenges in the distance, a couple coming up the road, a late start, and I've just seen a few disappear over the top there. I think we're all sort of aiming for this same first night tonight at the end of Loch Moraid, or possibly over the next ridge, before we sort of all diverse and go different ways. But that's about it really. What's Rose wearing? Rose has also got the Mendel boots. She loves those, very light, very comfortable. We've both incidentally moved on from leather boots now, just purely because the heat they generate, and in these sort of conditions you don't need them. A lot of people this year, I notice, wearing the Innovate. Chris Townsend has got a lot to answer for. A lot of people on the train showing great pleasure in that's all they were wearing, and taking a pair of sealskins with them for the river crossing, so be interesting to see how they get on. Rosie's got Terra Pants, Infinity T, Bionic T, Superfly jacket. What shorts have you got, Rose?
What?
Shorts. They bought some shorts in town the other day. Some North Face shorts, I think they are. And then she's taking several layers because she's a cold fish. So she's got a few thin layers. Some smart wool. Is it some crag hopper you got there? And anyway, her lot's in a Z pack, Gregory Z pack, and mine is in the Go Light Trek, which is a 65 litre, and it all sits in there quite happily. In fact, the stuff that takes the space up is a flaming food, and it's certainly the heaviest too. And finally, sorry for this long monologue, but finally, on the food front, we've really dried everything we possibly can this year. We've got every meal is a dried meal virtually, so we need to stop at some stage to reconstitute that, put the water in there and get it going. The heavy stuff is the dried fruit, the gorp, peanuts and chocolates and sort of bits in there. Beg your pardon? Oh yes. And last year a chunk of boiled fruitcake was just gorgeous for a cup of tea. So we've got a brick, at least I've got the brick. Everything else is, you know, what do you expect? Pasta and smash and that sort of stuff. But I'm carrying most of the food just to make it easier for Rose to get used to the pack really. But of course the first rule is the heaviest thing gets eaten first. And as soon as we start getting hungry in an hour or so's time, I'm sure we'll have a go at that. You look back at that view, Rose. Isn't that great? So the clouds at about 400 metres at the moment. It's just very calm, very still. Great. Loving it. Loving it.
Now you've got to admit that's the best sound of all, is the first brew of the trip. So Rosie and I have got over the first climb and down to the end of Loch BRA. There's a little boathouse here which is just out of the wind, so we're nestled up leaning against the boathouse, staring out at quite a pleasant view really. And brewing our first cup of tea, which is always the best one of the trip, just like the first whiskey when we get round to doing that. I think probably thinking about the only gear stuff that we didn't mention on our bit earlier on was we've got some small canoe shoes rather than sandals for river and stream crossings, because we find they're a lot lighter than sandals and they dry a lot quicker. But of course the downside is if you need to air your feet and it's really warm, sandals are much better, and these are on the sweaty side if you want to wear them in camp in the evenings. But on the whole the weather generally isn't that warm anyway. So that's it. So Rosie, you know, first couple of hours, we've now climbed done the first climb, and we're obviously going to enjoy our first brew. What do you think?
Yeah, it's been good. Good climb and looking for the path and watching your footing and all sorts of different things to look out for. Everything's a bit later up here, so it's nice to see all the bluebells and violets and primroses again, which we've had down south already. But some beautiful views. Have to keep stopping and looking. It's so still and peaceful. Brilliant.
Yeah, it's nice. It's a nice day. And how you found the pack and the carrying the weight? Are you?
Yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, she said. And hopefully, as we eat more, it'll get lighter.
So a big meal tonight then?
I think so.
Oh, well, we'll enjoy this brew and then we'll stop at the other end of the loch and have some lunch, I think.
Okay.
think it'd be true to say we've just experienced one of the most magical moments, which to many, myself included, this is what the challenge is all about. We've made it to the end of Loch Bearhead. It wasn't much of a trial, it was fairly easy going. Usual sort of, you find the trail, you lose the trail, stones and stuff. But being a fairly dry day and the land well drained, there was not much slushy stuff to have to go to. But we got to the far end, and there's a couple of, there was a couple of beaches, or there is a couple of beaches at the far end, one of which is a sort of a shingle beach, and the other one is a sand beach, would you believe? So we're just around the corner from that, and I think I might change this podcast to 101 things you can do with a bothy bag. So we pulled the bothy bag out, because the wind's fairly chilled and it's enough to make you feel uncomfortable and keep moving. And we've just gone round the corner, pulled the bothy bag out, turned it on its side, and we're sitting in it at the moment. And lo and behold, the sky's changed from grey clouds, and there's hardly a cloud in the sky. It's absolutely glorious. The sun's beating down, so much so that we were actually wondering where we put the suntan lotion. Unbelievable. We've been, that's probably about 7 hours into it now. We haven't been pushing it very hard, as it's day one, and also not feeling 100%, so we're taking our time. We just had lunch and a brew. Lunch consisted of a tortilla wrap and some tuna with the twists, which I discovered last year, and it works really well as a different type of lunch rather than trying to do a noodles thing. We got our dried food out, which is for tonight, and we've cut the tops off the plastic bags, and put the water in there and put that in the Nalgene pot, so that'll be reconstituted in about 2 or 3 hours' time. Incidentally, for those who don't know, what we've done with all our food this year, I think I mentioned it on the way up, but I'll just remind you, was we've dried it. We've got a food dehydrator, so we've been cooking meals and drying them as sort of, we'll explain as we go along, really, but tonight's menu is chili chickpeas. So it's a sort of tomato, chili and chickpeas sauce, which has been dehydrated and reduces to next to nothing. And we'll be adding some pasta to that, which is also sauce that we've dehydrated. We've cooked it first and then dehydrated it, because it actually reconstitutes much faster than cooking it from fresh. And then we found online Toshibo.co.uk had the vacuum packer. The vacuum packers are normally sort of, £100, £99, but these ones were dirt cheap at £15. So we bought one and recommended it to other people on OM, who I think bought the rest of the stock by the looks of it, and vacuum packed all the food. So we made sort of custom made bags, really. So that's how it works. So we vacuum pack the food, cut the top off the bag, and then fill it full of water, shove it in an Nalgene pot, and away we go. So now it's a case of dragging ourselves away from this sunshine and this lovely spot. We've got views straight down the loch. It's absolutely glorious, and the silence is just incredible. Not a noise, no planes, just the occasional bird singing and a cuckoo as it flies over. But we're going to head up over the pass now and hopefully catch up with the rest of the guys, who I believe is sort of camped up around Glenfinnan. So it's about I think about a 5 or 7 kilometre trip. It's about 2-3 kilometres uphill, I think. I haven't looked at the map for a minute. I'll do that in a second. And then the rest of it is just following the trail down to the confluence of the rivers. And I believe there's probably going to be a good 10 challenges around that area, so we'll see if we can catch up with them and see how their first day was. But I have to say, I'm really reluctant to move from here. Absolutely fabulous. Well, it's the morning of Saturday the 12th. I meant to do a recording last night, but to be fair, I was in such a state that I couldn't, which I will explain. It was a fair walk yesterday, about, 20 odd K, and the last little report I did from Loch Bearhead was beautiful, lovely and sunny. And then we went up Glen Don, and we met a couple of guys here at the bothy,
who'd also gone that way. And it was a nice day. So to be fair, it wasn't unpleasant and wet and slushy and all the rest of it. But the glen gets very, very steep and very, very dodgy in places, and you've really got to cling to the side with your fingertips to get through certain areas of it. But we managed to get to the top of there. But sadly, the way I was feeling with this blasted flu had caught up with me, and I was in a right state, just really, really shattered. Anyway, we battled on and got down to Corryhully Bothy around 8 p.m. last night, which was about a 10.5-hour day, but that was including sort of 2 half-hour stops for brews and something to eat. And we arrived at the Bothy to find 2 marks, also challengers that started from Loch Isle, and we'd seen them in the distance. And one of the marks had pulled a muscle in his leg going up Glen Don. And he wasn't in a bad way, but he'd certainly hurt himself. It was that steep. At what stage, apparently, he was negotiating some of the tricky rocks and held onto a branch of a tree, and the whole thing came down, and the other mark was just standing underneath him trying to catch him, which would have been an interesting moment. We got to we got to the Bothy, and there was a Belgian guy there with an enormous rucksack. It must have been a 100-litre rucksack, and we found out he was in the Belgian army, and he'd borrowed some equipment from the army, and he'd got a solo tent which weighed 4 kilo, and we all looked at each other and went, "Haven't you heard of the lightweight movement?" What was his name? Thomas. And then as we were sort of having something to eat and sort ourselves out, another couple, Scots couple, arrived for a long weekend or a weekend. They just thought they'd head out a bit earlier, and they were interesting because they'd brought let's think firelighters and matches, which makes sense, and they'd obviously brought a bit of camping gear, which makes sense. Then they also brought this very large inflatable double mattress, which was getting interesting. And then we found out they brought some scented candles as well. So once again, we all looked at each other and wondered if we perhaps should leave them to it or share the Bothy. So it was an interesting moment, and obviously it's nice to see that people are using the Bothies for all sorts of things these days. But anyway, we chose to pitch outside and sorted ourselves out, and as I say, here we are in the morning now. The sun's just coming through the door of the tent, and we're enjoying the first brew of the day. On to Kingbreek Bothy today. We were going to go a bit further, but make it a bit of an easier day today, and enjoy the moment. The sun is high, it's up, the sky is blue, there's a couple of fluffy clouds, and that's it. Fantastic. The stream's flowing, it's not wet at all. We're looking forward to another really, really good day.
So that's the end of part 1. In part 2, we make our way down to Kingbreek Bothy to find Steve Perry, Lorraine McCall, Shirley Worrell, Tony Hardman and Graham and Gavin Thompson. Join us next time to hear their stories, how their first day went, and they tell us all about their experiences so far in this lovely, quiet Bothy.
Hey, you're listening to One Man's podcast across Scotland, to be continued very soon.
Backpackinglight.co.uk.
Go lighter, go faster, go further.
To subscribe to our show, please follow the instructions on our website or search for us in the iTunes directory.
Thank you, and good night.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To hear or see more from our extensive free library, please visit theoutdoorstation.co.uk.